Mahayan shut the apartment door and locked it, her fingers trembling as they turned the key. She stood still, back pressed against the door, heart racing, as if she had narrowly escaped a disaster. Her breath came in short, shallow bursts, and her eyes darted around the empty living room. Not searching for anything in particular, just trying to feel safe. Her bag dropped from her shoulder onto the floor. She didn't care where it landed. All she wanted was to sit down, to let her body catch up with her mind. She collapsed onto the sofa, still clutching her keys in one hand, her phone in the other. That walk home had felt longer than usual, because, once again, a stranger had followed her. It had started a few blocks from her office. She heard footsteps, not close enough to raise alarm, but not far enough to ignore. She changed her route, twice. He changed his too. At first, she thought, maybe it was a coincidence. Then came the whistle, loud, sharp, obnoxious. "Hey, slow down. You don't have to act so shy," the man had called from behind. She didn't turn around. She picked up her pace. The footsteps grew faster too. "You're too pretty to be rude," he continued, laughing as though it were a joke. Her heart had been thudding so hard it hurt. She didn't stop. She didn't confront. She just crossed the street and kept moving until she reached a crowded road. Only then did she breathe. Now she sat in her apartment, trembling not from exhaustion, but from the ultra-familiar anxiety that came from being a woman who simply existed in public. It wasn't the first time, not even close. There had been the man on the bus who had accidentally brushed against her thigh twice, the shopkeeper who stared too long at her chest while pretending to look for change, the coworker who always stood just a little too close. It was never just one incident, it was the accumulation of small violations, of being watched, commented on, followed, touched. They built up like bricks, one on top of another, until a wall formed around her. She had stopped going out at night unless absolutely necessary. She never took a rickshaw alone after sunset. She had mapped every shortcut and alternate route from work to home. She walked with keys between her fingers, as if they could offer protection. And still, she never felt safe. At the office, she kept to herself. There was a deal, the guy from sales, who always found a reason to come by her desk. He made it a habit to compliment her appearance in ways that seemed harmless to others. "You always look so serious," he'd say, grinning. "Smile more. You've got a beautiful smile." She never smiled. There was no HR complaint, no confrontation. She didn't trust the system to take her side. She didn't want to be labeled sensitive, or worse, dramatic. So she stayed quiet and endured, like so many others. Her friends often told her she was being too guarded. "You act like every man is a threat," one of them had said during a dinner party. "You're not going to let anyone in if you keep acting like this." She hadn't responded. What could she say? That she didn't choose this fear. That it had chosen her. That her body remembered things her friends never had to experience. She didn't hate men. She feared them. And that was worse. It wasn't anger she carried, it was caution. It was a weight she bore in her spine, in the way she avoided eye contact, in the way she flinched when someone walked too closely behind her. The next morning at the office, she arrived early, as usual. She liked the quiet before everyone else came in. She sipped her coffee and prepared herself for another long day. Her manager entered smiling, a clipboard in hand. "We've got a new project coming in," he said. "Big one. You'll be working with Ollie." She blinked. "Who's Ollie?" "He joined last week. Technical guy, good background. You'll be leading the creative side." She frowned slightly. "Can I work alone?" The manager laughed. "We're encouraging collaboration. This quarter, you'll do fine." She didn't argue further, though she wanted to. A new man, a stranger. She felt her guard rise without thinking. Ali introduced himself later that day. He was polite, soft-spoken, and kept his distance. He didn't hover, didn't shake her hand unless she offered, didn't comment on her appearance. Just a quiet, "Looking forward to working with you." It was strange as neutrality. Unsettling, in a way. She wasn't used to a man who wasn't trying to impress her or make her uncomfortable. She watched him carefully during their first few interactions. He didn't make any inappropriate jokes. He didn't invade her space. He didn't try to pry into her life. It was all business, all professionalism. One afternoon, during a project discussion, she dropped a folder full of printed briefs. As she reached down to pick them up, Ali moved to help, then stopped. "Is it okay if I?" he asked, motioning toward the papers. She nodded. He helped quietly, handing her the documents one by one. No jokes, no lingering eye contact, just help. Then he returned to his seat. She sat there for a moment, frozen by the simplicity of it. That small moment had felt safer than 1,000 conversations she'd had with other men. The next day, he brought her a coffee without asking, not as a gesture of flirtation, but because she had mentioned once, in passing, that she skipped breakfast on Mondays. He placed it on her desk and said, "You mentioned mornings were rough." She thanked him cautiously. He smiled, nodded, and walked away. No expectations. Later that week, she was working late. She left the building after most of the staff had already gone. It was dark outside. A man stood near the gate, loitering, staring at her as she approached. Her steps slowed, her body tensed. She scanned the area for security. Then she heard a voice. Hey Mahan. She turned. It was Ali. He had just come out of the building behind her. You heading to the lot? He asked. She nodded. Mind if I walk with you? She shook her head. They walked in silence. He didn't ask what was wrong. He didn't make her feel fragile. He just walked beside her, at a respectful pace, a comfortable distance. When they reached the gate, he smiled and said, See you tomorrow. She nodded. That night Mahan lay in bed, eyes on the ceiling. Something inside her felt different. Ali hadn't done anything extraordinary. He hadn't made grand gestures, hadn't told her what she should feel, hadn't tried to rescue her like some fairy tale hero. And that's exactly why Mahan noticed him. It wasn't that he had proven himself. He simply existed in her space with care, not intrusion. That alone set him apart. In the following weeks, they continued working together on the campaign project. The more they collaborated, the more Mahan noticed the small things. How he waited before speaking, letting her finish her thoughts. How he gave credit for her ideas in meetings without taking over. How he asked for feedback. Never assumed he was right. It was subtle, gentle, like someone laying bricks quietly, not to build a wall, but a bridge. One afternoon, they stayed late again. They were finishing the presentation slides, finalizing client notes. The office was quiet. Dim yellow lights and the soft hum of the AC filled the silence. Ali leaned back in his chair and said, You're incredibly focused. It's rare. She looked up, a little caught off guard. Focused. Yeah, he said, shrugging. Most people are distracted. Always half in, half out. But when you're working, it's like the world doesn't exist. She wasn't sure how to respond. Compliments usually made her shrink inside, but this one didn't feel like an evaluation of her. It felt like recognition. Maybe it's because the world doesn't always feel safe, she said quietly. Eyes on her screen. He didn't respond right away. She could feel the air shift, like her words were fragile, floating between them, and he didn't want to disturb them. Do you want to talk about it? He asked gently. No, she said, then paused. Not yet. Okay, he said. When you're ready. Or never. Either is fine. That was the moment she realized he wouldn't force her to be vulnerable, and because of that, for the first time, she wanted to be. Over the next few days, she began to open up in small ways. She shared that she preferred emails over calls because she liked clarity, that she hated crowded elevators, that she loved the quiet of early mornings but rarely went out to enjoy them. Ali listened, not to reply, but to understand. He never pressed her with questions. He never acted like he had solutions. He just made space for her. But one morning, they walked into the building together by coincidence. The security guard smiled at Ali and said, Sir, this way. Mahan noticed how Ali always greeted the guard by name, asked how his kids were doing, not in a performative way, but genuinely. She liked that. Later that day, during lunch, she found herself saying, You're kind to people most would ignore. He looked up from his sandwich, surprised. It doesn't feel like kindness, just basic decency, isn't it? She smiled faintly. That's the kind of decency most women hope for. He nodded, but didn't ask questions. Again, that quiet understanding. Then came the unexpected call. Her manager informed the team that they'd be traveling out of town for a client presentation, her and Ali. It would be an overnight trip. Hotel booked, flights arranged, every part of Mahan wanted to say no. The thought of traveling with a man, staying in a hotel even on different floors, walking through unfamiliar streets with him, it triggered every alarm inside her, but she paused. Something inside her whispered. Tried. She agreed. The evening flight was delayed. They waited at the airport lounge, both working on their laptops, side by side, in silence. Occasionally, they shared small talk, nothing deep, just enough to fill the air. On the plane, they didn't sit together. She was grateful for that. He understood even without asking. At the hotel, they checked in. Separate rooms. He didn't ask to hang out. He didn't joke about ordering dinner together. Just a polite, see you in the morning. The next day they gave their presentation. It went smoothly. The client was impressed. When they stepped out of the boardroom, she was smiling genuinely. He turned to her, eyes lit with excitement. You were incredible in there. Thanks, she said. So were you. They grabbed lunch afterward, at a small cafe near the client's office. The atmosphere was relaxed, the pressure gone. She found herself laughing for the first time in a long time, freely, without caution. It startled her. She wasn't used to lowering her shoulders, letting go. Ali noticed. You should laugh more. Often she tilted her head. Most of the time, I don't feel like it. His expression softened. I know. And in that moment, without meaning to, the words came out. I used to trust people, men especially. Then one by one, they chipped away at that trust. Sometimes through words. Sometimes with silence. Sometimes with hands where they shouldn't be. He didn't interrupt. She continued. I got tired of explaining, of defending my discomfort, of being told it was in my head. So I stopped talking. I built walls. Allie sat quietly, absorbing every word. She looked away, and then you showed up, and I kept waiting for the mask to drop. For the moment, you'd crossed the line. But it didn't happen. Still, he said nothing, so she looked at him. Why? He met her eyes. Because that's not what care looks like, and I never wanted to be another reason you stopped trusting. She felt something inside her crack opener, quiet release. Not tears, not a breakdown, just ... space. Finally, they flew home that evening. The sky was dark when she walked up the steps to her apartment. She turned to look at him. Thank you, she said. He nodded. Get some rest. She went inside, but the air felt different now. Lighter, like a room where a window had finally been opened. Days passed. Their project ended. New ones began. They weren't always paired together anymore, but they'd talk sometimes. Exchange ideas. Share updates. He never expected anything more from her, and maybe that's why she gave it freely. One Friday evening, she waited outside the office building. He came out a few minutes later. Walking to the metro, he asked. She nodded. Want company? She hesitated, then smiled. Sure. They walked side by side, the city buzzing around them, lights blinking, cars honking in the distance. She didn't flinch when a stranger passed too close. She didn't scan every shadow. She felt safe, not because he protected her, but because he never made her feel weak. As they reached the station, she turned to him. You know, I don't fear men any less, but I don't fear you, and that means something. He smiled. It means everything.